everyone, Pushing Up Roses here, and welcome to another shocking edition of That Time on Murder, She Wrote, where we talk about all things Murder, She Wrote, in case that wasn't evident by the title. Today we'll be taking a look at an episode from Season 8 called Lines of Excellence, and yes, I did choose it because it heavily features early 90s computers and computer hacking.
Fight the planet!
This is particularly exciting because Jessica Fletcher, author and super sleuth extraordinaire, will be upgrading her electric typewriter to a computer. The nerd in me is screaming right now.
Uh-oh. An L key.
That's certainly one way to take the L. You may notice that in these later episodes, Jess is no longer in Cabot Cove, and that is because she becomes more successful as an author and decides to expand and rent an apartment in New York to write and teach, and that's where this episode takes place, New York City. Oh, Dave Grohl, lead singer of the Ooh-Iders. We begin in Jessica's class where she is teaching a course on writing murder mystery.
Now, how is a killer likely to act, as opposed to someone who is innocent?
This class is either going to result in good writers or a bunch of psychopaths.
Put yourselves into the mind of a murderer.
Is this some kind of trap? A young man named Michael seems to be excelling in the class, but is abruptly called away by the principal. Even though he is Jess's best student, he is being taken out of her class because he didn't have the right credentials to take such an advanced course.
Well, then how did he get in?
By altering his records in the university's mainframe computer.
Fight the planet!
Jessica doesn't like this answer and decides to look into Michael's background. Meanwhile, we got that sexy sex. It actually feels like we're suddenly in an episode of Law & Order. Jessica, being the sweet, understanding person she is, confronts Michael in an attempt to understand his motives.
I want to be a writer. No, scratch that. I am a writer. I just...
Am bad. He says he just wants to learn from Jess, so he altered his transcripts to get in, then was caught when he tried to put him back the way they were.
Ain't that a kick in the head?
As the fellow once said. Jessica believes he is a very bright student. She read some of his short stories, was very impressed, and encourages him to keep writing. Jess also wants to keep him on the right path, and asks for help upgrading from her typewriter to a new computer, since he seems to be savvy with them. Oh no, word art. Michael works for a firm that develops software for computers. His job is to buy computers at a low cost and sell them to this company, so he uses that connection to help his esteemed teacher. Jess is brought to a computer class by two software engineers. Their company offers a course for people who want to learn to use computers for personal purposes. Sir, you can't take the keyboard with you. Oh, Ken Williams. She is introduced to Derek St. James, who is in charge of installing the personal computers in their students' home as part of the cost of the class. Jess is on board.
Well, good. First class is tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
Oh wow, can we see that dub again?
Well, good. First class is tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
It almost matches. I was confused for a moment. I thought some disembodied voice was speaking. Derek begins spewing a lot of jargon at Jess about computers.
Do you have any offhand preferences?
Well, I was thinking of something in a nice beige.
We only have tan. Later that day, her computer and phone line is all set up so she can send and receive information whenever she'd like.
Oh, it's remarkable.
Oh, if only she knew what's to come. Meanwhile, we view a small scene of one of the engineers getting into a fight with some guy. We don't know how he's involved yet, but he is mad. I can't figure out the Encarta trivia game. Jess stands up for Michael, asking the principal to give him a second chance. He responds by telling her that he has a police record, then tells her to stop caring about the students so much.
There's no shortage of love in the world. Only of worthy vessels to put it in.
Ew. Michael seems to be making a deal for hot computer parts with some unsavory types. He tells one of them not to call him Mikey, that he goes by Michael now, clearly a changed man.
Pretty soon you're gonna forget you're just another guy from the block.
Just like Jenny. Tough guys with computers is my new favorite aesthetic. Yo, you played that new King's Quest yet? It's real hard. The hooligan tells Michael he is behind on his payments, and Michael responds by staring. Mike.exe has stopped working. During computer class, Derek teaches Jess that if she writes a script in her hometown of Cabot Cove, she can transfer it via the phone lines to her new office in New York.
You know, this is beginning to sound very attractive.
Suddenly, Jess gets a fatal disk error.
It's gone. Dead.
That's not what that means at all. It's not dead, Jim. Seems that Jessica's hard drive has crashed, meaning it should be spelled D-I-S-K and not D-I-S-C. D-I-S-C is often used to describe media like CDs and Blu-ray. A little computer trivia from me to you. You're welcome. Jess strikes up a conversation with another student who also doesn't really understand computers.
Maybe I'm too old to learn.
Aw, you're never too old to learn. You're just too dumb. Adrian! Okay, this computer workroom sign is so off-center, it is driving me nuts. Michael runs into one of the software engineers, Linda, who is upset that her partner, Alan, stole her game and put it on shelves without her knowledge. Surrender or Die Earth Scum. I bet it's a puzzle game. Michael gives Jessica a ride home and she finds out his so-called police record entails him stealing comics when he was 14. Wow, this car is bouncing all over the place. I'm surprised the report wasn't for reckless driving.
Once you make a few mistakes, nobody wants you to go straight. Get your act together. Messes up their expectations.
Murder, She Wrote dropping some truth bombs over here, dang. Michael's mother is apparently dying to meet Jess, so she agrees to have dinner at his family's place the next night. That is the biggest bowl of peas I have ever seen in my entire life. Why would you ever need that many peas? Here's what Michael's mom has to say about her son.
They hit him, he gets up and goes for them.
Ma.
They knock him down, he gets up.
Ma.
They knock him down, he
Ma.
That's literally the plot of Rocky IV. The episode suddenly gets extremely silly with a nosy neighbor stopping by with her entourage, hoping to get Jess to autograph a ton of books. Fuck my life. Michael excuses himself to take a quick break.
You know, I spent my whole life in this neighborhood. Was born here. I was raised here.
That is what that means. Michael is deflated because he has grand dreams of being a writer but feels that nobody believes in him. So, this guy is dead? Alan, the software engineer, has been murdered and now computer class has to be canceled. Two detectives are assigned to the case and they are weird. I almost feel like these characters were meant to be developed for their own series. They're always bantering with each other and making humorous quips about the case. It's bizarre, honestly. Changes the entire tone of the episode.
The lady with no class is Lieutenant Cynthia Devereaux.
Excuse me, that title goes to another Devereaux.
I'm the biggest slut.
Everyone begins to discuss potential suspects and their motives. Jessica, of course, brings a lot more to the discussion than anyone else, being the wonderfully observant woman she is.
You always miss these things.
I know, I should attend more staff meetings.
Did he just admit he's a shit detective? They usually aren't that straightforward. Meanwhile, Michael gets a visit from the man he owes money to. This is a violent episode of Friends. Now we cut to, Jesus, that is a green salad! It's nuclear! It looks like the relish from a Chicago hot dog. Detectives Chance and Devereaux go to Linda's new office to interrogate her since she is a suspect and everyone knew how angry she was when Alan stole her game. Chance mentions that some unpleasant threats were made.
Redundant. All threats are unpleasant.
Unless you threaten me with a good time, am I right?
Why don't we just cut the dog and pony show, okay?
Oh, I like that part of the circus. Linda says she had nothing to do with Alan's murder, but can't provide an alibi. Adrian! Michael calls Jess from a payphone and says he believes he knows who killed Alan, Henry Waverly. Over the phone, he gives Jess directions on where she can go to meet up with him to talk further. She boots up her computer and types it up. Derek St. James invites the detectives to the computer classroom where he implicates Michael by telling them the computers he was supplying were stolen. Which is a weird thing to admit because if you can't prove you didn't know that, you're an accessory. Jess meets Michael at the address she was given.
Are you alright?
Yeah, it's just... Sty. Suddenly, the Fuzz shows up and they arrest Michael, who is upset that they located him. He thinks Jess told them about the location because she was the only one he mentioned this to. She is baffled. He is jailed for selling hot goods, but it's likely he will also be charged for murder. Jess vows to figure out the truth. Oh hey, remember those phones with the little notepads on them? Did anyone ever use those? Jessica gets a call from her son Susan, who just gave birth. Jess is surprised that nobody called to let her know, and Susan said someone did call her, but the phone line was busy. Now what could have been using the phone line? The computer is a phone? Jess asked the operator if she could get a list of numbers her phone may have called. Jess and the detectives question Henry Waverly, a former student from computer class. Jess asks him if he knows anything about a phone number her computer dialed, and he has a similar experience with his computer, and appears to be ashamed of whatever it was he was keeping on it.
We're not interested in messing up your family.
Just your career. He explains that he was having an affair and was being blackmailed. He had talked to Alan, but he knew nothing about it, but someone saw his salacious messages. And now another sax solo. I wanna know what love is. Jess sets up a sting to prove her theory. One of her other students is called into the course by Derek St. James, who says he found a construction memo on his computer that admits to using faulty material. This proves Derek is the blackmailer, and Jess comes in to explain that when he set up the computers, he would use a program that transmits everyone's files back over to him, so if anyone had any dirty laundry, he could use it. That's how he found out about Henry Waverly's affair and the location Jess met Michael at.
Hack the planet! Hack the planet!
Derek is offended, so he cheeses it, only to get stopped by these weird caricatures of detectives. They call him out on his less than polished methods.
Oh, and sloppy. Very, very sloppy.
Guess he's dealing with sloppy drives. Which makes me think, I wonder what a floppy Joe would be. Jessica meets up with Michael and his parents and continues to encourage his writing by letting him audit her class. His parents invite over a few people to celebrate Michael getting released from jail, and it quickly becomes my big fat Italian party. Thank God there's liquor. Okay, final thoughts. This was a surprisingly fun episode of Murder, She Wrote. I chose it because I have a soft spot for computers, especially from the early 90s, and I was excited at the prospect of hacking because I thought there might be some egregious errors I could riff on. However, it was surprisingly accurate. The mystery was easy to follow and even solve, and there are a lot of clues given to the audience early on, such as Derek telling Jessica to keep her computer on all the time, day or night, to conserve energy, and his knowledge of computer setup. There's some great wisdom and dialogue between Jessica and Michael, and I think this episode could have been a little deeper with more serious moments, so it's a shame those scenes are squashed by silly characters. I do not get these two detectives, and I'm not sure why they're here. They seem to have some kind of dynamic where they're constantly mocking each other, but also supportive of each other when they do well on the case. Well, when they think they're doing well, at least. Jess solved this one all on her own yet again, and I think these two were there to serve as the comic relief, though most of the time they just said stereotypical cop things.
Mrs. Fletcher, please, we haven't eaten all day.
I love the character of Michael and his family. I wish he could have been in more episodes because the actor did a solid job in his role. Though these criminals are maybe the least threatening people I've ever seen in my life, so the acting is about 50-50 here. Some good performances, some weird, but 100% worth watching. If you have an episode of Murder, She Wrote you are dying to see me cover, please leave a comment, and as always, happy sleuthing. Hey everyone, thanks for watching my video on Murder, She Wrote, Lines of Excellence. I hope you had fun learning about computer hacking. If you want to see more from me, I have a whole channel's worth of crap, but first I want to thank my patrons for supporting all of my Jessica Fletcher-like endeavors. If you want to support me and the show, consider becoming a patron, and if not, comments and shares are also very important to my self-esteem. If you'd like to watch more of my content, here are a few suggestions for your viewing pleasure. On the right, I have a fun little retrospective on the disastrous Ferris Bueller television show, and on the left I have a critical but humorous review of one of the many Hellraiser sequels. Thanks again for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.